Welcome into the Bears Squad Show. I'm Joe George, Postgame host, and the Chicago Bears have their first victory of the 2025 NFL season.
I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, and it's amazing what happens when you give Caleb a pocket and some deep, speedy receivers downfield.
I'm Adam Sager. 4 turnovers for the defense, and Tyreek Stevenson was awesome.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Everything Chicago Bears, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
4 passing touchdowns for Caleb Williams, 4 turnovers for the defense, and the Bears get their first victory of the 2025 year, defeating the Dallas Cowboys 31-24. Joe George, Lauren Cox, and Adam Sager. We're talking all things Bears today. We got a lot to talk about, guys. So much good stuff. So different than the first 2 shows we did together. Thank goodness the Bears played really good football today. There's really a million things to go through, honestly, in the offense. We'll start off with you, Lauren, and kind of let you pick your poison. What's the favorite thing you saw today from Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and this offense?
Yeah, so I think it's the broader quarterback rhythm and playing within structure, and then being able to then break from that structure when you need to. Like this to me felt like the formula that we had been anticipating the whole time, where it's like, okay, if you give him consistent plays where, there's timing with receivers and 3 and 5 step drops, he's going to get to them. But then when there's plays when that's not there or the protection breaks down, then he can get out of the pocket and make those plays, but you don't want him to be the superhero every time. And this felt like they had found that right mix of no, he's able to execute and operate the offense the way it's drawn up. And then in those moments when that wasn't possible, Caleb Williams could do his own version of playmaking to create something out of nothing. And that's the balance we've been looking for to strike from the moment they hired Ben Johnson.
My favorite thing today, outside of Caleb just going scorched earth, was Ben Johnson finally looked like the Ben Johnson that we've been waiting for, with the trick plays, with the, he was in his bag tonight. And even sometimes the plays didn't work. We saw the direct snap to Monangai, and then he tossed it to Caleb, and they were looking downfield, and it didn't even work. But just to see that and start putting that stuff on film makes teams start to have to think about it. And we hadn't really seen it through the first 2 weeks. So that was my favorite thing today.
Yeah, I think it says something about the confidence that Ben Johnson is growing in with this offense. I remember him talking about the stumble play that they ran against the Bears last year when he first got hired. That's not something you roll out the first week of the season. That's something you roll out later in the year. We saw the flea flicker, which DeAndre Swift, man, that pass was brutal. I mean, the fact that play worked was incredible because he lollipopped that thing to Caleb Williams, and the throw was awesome. And then the reverses. I mean, we saw a couple different reverses in this game. The one on the 3rd down on that monster drive, which we'll talk about, is probably the gutsiest call of them all. I mean, to see you've got that weapon in Luther Burden, you've got to use them. And they did that today. We'll talk about how he came through with what he promised us of using some of these other guys on the offense. But seeing him run that reverse on I think a 3rd and 4 it shows the confidence that Ben Johnson had in his team today. And that was really what stood out to me is he felt like the offense was in a much better place. And maybe that's the Cowboys defense is part of it for sure, but he felt more confident. You could see it with the play calls he was throwing out there for Caleb and this team.
And just finding ways to kind of supplement the running game in that way. It's all right, DeAndre Swift's still only getting what he finished with 2.5 yards per carry. And I think Monangai wasn't much better. All right, you're not getting able to get up the middle, but can you hand it off to Olamide Zaccheaus? Can you hand it off to DJ Moore? Can you get guys involved in different ways just to kind of break it up a little bit so you don't have to have Caleb throwing every single time, or even just getting into the read option plays where Caleb kept it himself? You still want better from the running game, but I like the creativity and the effort to say, all right, this isn't working. We're not going to abandon the Swift downhill running, but let's also get something else going.
Yeah, the run game you mentioned, they only ran the ball for 87 yards, but they carried it 29 times. So that's what I think in this game, that's what was needed to set up all this passing game. And yeah, it wasn't effective, only 3 yards per carry, but being able to continue to run the ball because you're up, and we saw that monster drive, and there was some good runs in there for 4, 5, 6 yards. They picked up one on a third down. I think it was 3rd and 4, and they picked it up on the ground. So yeah, there you can see momentum. The offensive line was a lot better today. We had no false starts, if I remember correct, right? What was there any false starts?
I think so. I know Wright got hit with a penalty, but it wasn't a false
Wright
start.
got hit with the holding, and then he got hit with the legal man downfield. The holding, I went back and watched and saw a couple replays on Twitter. Another kind of rough holding call there for Darnell Wright that we saw last week, where it's kind of like, what are you calling? Or maybe that was week 1, but the offensive line looked better today. Caleb was able to sit and just look. He didn't have to worry about guys hitting him. And that, again, Joe, that's partly that Dallas Cowboys defense. But this is the steps we need to see week in, week out.
Yeah, I think let's look at that drive. I mean, they ran it 21 times. They ran it 11 straight times on that drive in the third quarter. That drive, 9 minutes and 54 seconds, 4 third down conversions on that drive. And they're doing a little bit of everything. So, I mean, the first one there, you've got the bad throw to Rome Odunze on 2nd down from Caleb. Probably his worst throw of the day, honestly. But then he makes up for it immediately on the 3rd and 10 and finds DJ Moore for the 1st down. And then that's when they start just going run. I mean, 11 straight carries to take that much time off the clock. I had to do like a mental reset as I was watching the game of like, as I'm taking notes, did I miss a possession? Because the third quarter is already over because of how much they just controlled the clock. That, to me, was one of the more impressive things we've seen from a Bears offense in years. I couldn't tell you the last time we've seen anything similar to that, to control the clock for nearly an entire quarter, and Ben Johnson just knowing what was going to work and changing up the runs and who was getting it. That, to me, was the drive of the game for the Bears.
And to what we were just talking about earlier, like it wasn't just pounding your head into the sand, Swift for 2 yards, Swift for 3 yards, Swift for 2 yards, Swift for 3 yards. Like he was willing to stick with the ground game even when Swift wasn't getting much else, but it was the sprinkling in. It was like they have a couple Swifts in a row, and then Caleb has a read option, and then a Swift, and then a DJ Moore, and then a Swift, and then a Luther Burden, and then another read option, and then you get Swift. Like to be able to sprinkle that in, I felt was some of the real mastery there, so that you never got too far behind the sticks where you'd be in 3rd and long. It's like, well, we can't run the ball on this play, or we just have to drop back and pass, because he kind of found the right ways to sprinkle those all in.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Joe, on 3rd down. They were great today, 8 of 14 total. They picked up 4 on that drive, like you mentioned, and that's what we need. And Caleb was great on 3rd down passing. They showed the stat, and I don't know where he ended up, but at one point late in the game, he was 7 of 9 for like 118 yards and a touchdown on 3rd down. I mean, that's great to see, because that's where young quarterbacks can struggle, because they try and do too much in those, pressure situations of trying to pick up the 1st down. And Caleb was tremendous. I just thought he looked so much more poised today in the pocket, and that helped by not getting guys in his face every 2 plays like it was last week. So I think the offensive line stepping up really helped Caleb, and they were great on 3rd down as a team.
I wonder how much of that poise too just came from a higher level of confidence in knowing Matt Eberflus's defense. Like not only knowing that it's bad so that you're going to have time, right, but also just like they're not going to confuse you or throw anything at you that you're not expecting. Like week 1 against the Vikings, everything is going to be unexpected. And even week 2 against the Lions, it's a slightly different defensive system than the year before. I mean, they tweak a few things, and the Lions always have some aggressive blitzing under this regime under Dent.
Yeah.
But Eberflus, he knew like not going to blitz much, not going to be much man coverage, a lot of soft zone, not a lot of disguise. Like he could have that extra level of trusting his eyes and not double questioning. Like, oh wait, is this what they're going to call? Or no, I know exactly. It's Matt Eberflus. I've seen this at practice 1,000 times.
Yeah, I think throughout the entire game, we saw kind of that command, and I do wonder how much that helps. I mean, Caleb pointed out the Mike linebacker and things like that. It's so clear when he's doing it, and it seemed like he just has an operational thing for the Bears today. That was the other part that was much better, just as an entire package of what they did. It was cleaner, even if they were getting up to the line of scrimmage with less than 10 seconds. They knew what they were doing. Caleb was getting guys still in the right spot, and they were moving. It was just a much better offense today. I think the biggest thing to me, honestly, from a big picture perspective, is how they respond in this game. And we can talk about, yes, it's the Cowboys and their defense isn't good and there's all that. But when your coach is calling you out about practice habits after the game, during the week, and then this is the performance that you respond with, that to me is really important because that's already separating this era of football from the Matt Eberflus era, where last year it collapsed after the Hail Mary. This team is responding to Ben Johnson in a way that we just never really saw under Eberflus.
Yeah, I that's a great point because you never know, especially a team because they're a little bit older, with a lot of vets and stuff. And I thought the defense responded really well after a rough start to the game. But offensively, I thought they were going to kind of, when it was close early and it felt like the defense wasn't going to stop Dak Prescott at all, the offense just didn't be like, oh my God, we got to score every single time. We're going to drive the ball down the field over and over and over. No, they took their time. They ran the ball, over and over and over and established the run, even though it wasn't quite as productive as they would like. But it felt like they never felt like they had to score every drive. And that's the poise of the entire offense that I thought was good today.
And I think it really helps scoring touchdowns on your first two drives of the game. That even though Dak Prescott answered back with a touchdown in between those two drives, like to be able to come out and meet the Cowboys score, and you're like, this is going to be a shootout. And then I think it was very next play. It was first play of the drive, the Luther Burden touchdown pass.
Yes, yeah.
Like right away, boom, we can go punch for you. And I think from there, they're able to kind of sit in the driver's seat on cruise control and say, oh, okay, like now we don't have to stress. We don't have to feel like our back's against the ball. We don't have to feel like we have to score every time. We can just ride this out and trust that we are going to be able to move the ball, not necessarily at will, but like we're going to be able to score pretty much whenever we want to. Okay.
In the moment, how did you feel about the going for it on fourth down to go back to that long drive? Were you okay with it? Obviously, the result is great. I like the confidence from Ben Johnson, and I think the score helps in that point in the game. If you give it to Dak Prescott and you're on the 5-yard line or whatever it is, like that's fine. It's not the end of the world, but I like the confidence in with it. And frankly, I was even surprised to hear Tom Brady questioning that they were going to go for it. I thought it was like a pretty obvious situation at that point in the game to go for the fourth down touchdown there. But were you surprised at all, Lauren, that was the move we saw from Ben Johnson there?
I definitely wasn't surprised. I think my initial reaction was a little bit of nerves just because it's like if it's taken you 19 or 18 plays up to that point to get to the 1 yard line, like you haven't had the big chunk plays at that time. It's been a little bit of a slog. So I had a little bit of the nerves, but I think the math there is like, well, you were up 10 at the time, so a field goal would still make it a 2-touchdown game. So it wouldn't really give you that much of an advantage had you just settled for the field goal. So I mean, I understood and agreed with it, despite having some worries about. I was worried they might not convert it, but having Dak backed up to the 1 yard line there might not be the end of the world either.
Yeah, I loved the play call. I loved that it was set up that Caleb could move the way he did and create some time. And Caleb did not force a throw early that he didn't need to, and was able to find DJ Moore across the back of the end zone. And I liked the play call just because of what you said there, Lauren, the score at the time. You're up 10, the field goal only puts you up 13. We know that Cowboys offense, even without CeeDee Lamb, can still score pretty quickly. And I was sitting there and I said, go for it, right away. As soon as whoever that third down play went to, I was
the screen past the Burden.
Yes, that's what it was. And so I was to go for it.
And I have to imagine, when I saw that it was 3rd and 8 or 9, and they throw it behind the line of scrimmage with the Burden, I think Ben Johnson knew right then and there it was 4 down territory, right? Like I don't think they call the screenplay there on 3rd down if they're not fully planning on going for it on 4th down. I mean, albeit like as long as it's not a disaster negative play, but if you gain anything on that 3rd down play, you're setting up the 4th down play there. I was just surprised he goes to an empty formation on 4th and goal from like the 1 or the 2 yard line. So no threat of a run whatsoever, no play action, just straight drop back. And everyone did their job. It was great, but I was surprised that was the specific approach there. But it certainly, when you go empty, then it stretches the defense a lot more horizontally, and that's where you can end up having that space in the middle where DJ Moore sneaks behind. And so obviously Ben Johnson knows a lot more about this and gets paid a lot more than this than we do.
Yeah, he earned his money today for sure for the Bears. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like it goes back to the Ben Johnson having a plan. Like it's not to, bring up Shane Waldron and these guys too much, at this point, but last year you run that screen on third down. I don't feel like Shane Waldron has the confidence, or the plan to go for it in that situation, and it's not well thought out with like Ben Johnson. You're right, Lauren. It's like, okay, we're going to run the screen to Luther Burden. As long as it's not a disaster, we're going to go for it here on fourth down, and that's going to work out. You guys are welcome into the comments as well. Let's see. NDF here says might have been the best Bears offensive performance I've ever actually watched. It was so beautiful. I don't know if it was the best we've ever seen, but it was a breath of fresh air. Cardiac Crew Production says we'd love to see Rome finish with 12 to 15 reception touchdowns this year. We'll talk about Rome a little bit in the next segment, but just real quickly, guys, I mean, that connection is looking really special so far.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this game was a little bit more about how well he was able to spread it around to everybody. Like, clearly the best connection there is with Rome Odunze, but I think, we got so excited after last week's, 7 catches for 127 that I was almost a little bit disappointed in 3 catches for 62 yards and a score. I mean, Luther Burden ended up being the leading receiver, which I think is more important for the offense than just continuing to keep, hammering home the Rome Odunze connection that already feels like that's kind of a checked box on the list.
Yeah, you love to see the connection so far between the two of them. I think it can be a special duo for a long time in this league, especially Rome from last year to this year. His route running looks so much better. And he came out as known as a very good route runner. But I thought last year he was a little slow out of breaks, and this year he looks completely. That move he put on Trevon Diggs to score the first touchdown was awesome. So just him continuing to grow as a receiver and Caleb trusting him more and more and more every week, the two are going to be really good.
That Trevon Diggs touchdown, that's one of those plays where if you're playing Madden and you're controlling the Cowboys defense, you're like, this is so unrealistic.
Yeah.
Scrimmage. That's Trevon Diggs. This game sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very upset in that moment if that happens. All right, let's take our first break here. Let's take a deep dive into what we saw from Caleb Williams today and what we thought about his performance. We'll get to that next year on the Bears Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I think, unfortunately, for everyone that uses PrizePicks, this might be the last time we see it at more than a half a passing touchdown for Caleb Williams. Feel like that number might start to creep up. So hopefully you got it. I used it today in my PrizePicks lineup that I had going. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, so Caleb Williams throws for 4 touchdowns on the day, guys. What's your just, overall impression of what we saw from the Bears quarterback? Lauren?
Yeah, I think the deep ball connection and timing was the thing that felt most like progress for me. Like everything else we had kind of seen, we'd seen him get into rhythm a little bit more before in some other games, and in the preseason certainly, we like again, especially that second preseason game against the Bills. Like we saw him operate the 3-step drop, hitch, throw, timing. Like we saw he could handle the basic structure of the offense. But this was the first game where we saw multiple deep bombs connected, not always perfectly in stride, but catchable, easy, touchdown plays there. To not have many of those that you just miss where it's like, oh, he was wide open. Like one of the things I said on the podcast this week is I know Luther Burden is going to get a deep shot or two. I just wasn't sure whether they'd actually connect on him. So for especially a player like that missed a bunch of time and is a rookie and is also learning this offense, for those two to connect multiple times deep downfield, to me is a real sign of progress that isn't just purely, well, yeah, Matt Eberflus's defense is bad and they gave up deep shots, but they've had open deep attempts against other defenses, and it hasn't really been a reflection of the defense that has stopped those from happening.
Yeah, when the game started and he missed that throw to Colson Loveland on the sideline on the out, I was kind of like, damn, let's not start this way. But then they come back the next drive and he hits Loveland on that deep ball that he's been overthrowing through 2 weeks. Like that ball that Loveland stopped, jumped, and made the 30-yard catch, whatever it was. that's a ball he's missed this season. And to come back, hit that throw, and then he just kind of got in a rhythm from there. But my favorite throw today, the 62-yard or 65-yard, however long he threw that ball, that was great. But that ball he threw to Luther Burden over top the defense, that he layered it in over Cole Kmet, and was just, I mean, a thing of beauty. Not many quarterbacks can make that throw. And that's the difference with Caleb. He can make those throws, and that's where he can be special. And if he continues to grow off games like this, he can be very, very special in this league.
Yeah, he finds 4 different guys for touchdowns today. What you just mentioned there, Lauren, before we went to break, is it's not just Rome. He found DJ Moore, he found Cole Kmet, he found Luther Burden, and Rome Odunze, obviously, all for touchdowns, spreading the love. Like, when you invest this much in your skill position group as the Bears have had, like, we've always have been excited about it, but it's there's only one ball to go around. But Caleb Williams did a fantastic job distributing it today. I mean, the one to Cole Kmet, like, you can nitpick it a little bit, but still, like, Cole Kmet, like, that's a catch he's gonna make. We've seen him make that before. It felt very similar to, I think, one of the touchdowns he had last year against Jacksonville over in London from Caleb. So we just saw the distribution going around, and that's where, with Ben Johnson, with this offense, the sky can be the limit, I think, with the skill position players you have. It's 1 week. We'll see what happens next week and the rest of the season. But we saw, I think, a glimpse of what, Adam, what you just said too, of what can be. Like, this was the throws Caleb was making in this game were special. I think my favorite throw, though, is the one on the bootleg where there's a man in his face and he just threw it off his back foot to Rome Odunze. That throw was incredible. To get it there to Rome, to have that guy right there about to take you down, that was the one that really was like, I was like, okay, this dude can do things that very few other quarterbacks in the NFL can do.
And there's still so much room for him to continue to get even better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of the things I come with. It's like, yeah, we can talk about all the great things he did in this game, and it's like, wow, what a great performance from Caleb Williams. And he can still be even better, and like easy stuff, right? Of course, we say, well, every quarterback can be better X, Y, or Z, but like there's very clearly like little things that he could still get better at in terms of, he missed a couple of just easier throws. Tom Brady talked about on the broadcast. So there was the overthrow of Colston Loveland in the middle of the field, and there was one hopped it to Olumide Zaccheaus on a screen with some pressure in his face. Like, imagine, like, as you continue to clean up those and get some consistency on top of all of the great special stuff, like that to me is just, it's such a clear path towards he's gotten better and he's going to continue to even get better from here. Like, this is not peak Caleb Williams just yet.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned he threw 4 touchdowns to 4 different people. He connected with 8 different receivers in the game, which kind of shows the depth they do have in the weapons category. But let's even remember that he really had a 5th touchdown that Rome dropped. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a great ball in terms of the flight of the ball, but it hit him right in the hands. I mean, you're an NFL wide receiver. You have to catch that ball. And that's the one little concern I still have about Rome, is some of these drops that are hitting him square in the hand, the contested catches that he was so good at Washington. Since he's coming in the NFL, it's been like a 180. He can't catch a contested ball. So the fact that he could have had a 5th because they didn't score a touchdown on that drive, and then they came right back and he threw another one. So it was good to see Caleb do that. Still some things to work on, but man, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like the overthrows that we're seeing from Caleb, the drop from Rome, it was a wobbly duck to him as well. Like you don't see it real time, but they show the behind the view, and that thing is like, it looks like a Tim Tebow pass the way that thing's coming out of Caleb's hand there. But so those were they're still, and that's what I think is exciting about this game, is that of how well it went. Which, what you said, Lauren, such clearly areas that need to really improve still in a pretty dramatic way, but it's that there's ways to work around it at this point in time.
And there seems to be, I want to get both of you guys' thoughts on this, but did you think that DJ Moore's reduction in role was a result of the things Ben Johnson said? I mean, he ended up finishing with, what was it, just 4 catches for 21 yards. Did obviously have the touchdown in there, but like felt like a less emphasized part of the offense. And yet I remember on think it was the DeAndre Swift screenplay. DJ Moore was downfield 40 yards or whatever, blocking hard to the whistle. Like it feels like, and maybe we were all reading too much into this from the get-go, but like it feels like if there was a message sent to DJ Moore, it was heard, and that maybe that role had been declined a little bit, but now he's doing some of the things to maybe try and get more of it back.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there's finally a coach in the building that can hold DJ Moore accountable for his bullshit, because, excuse me, but last year, nobody was there to do that. Ryan Poles can't do that. He's not that guy. We all know Matt Eberflus wasn't that guy. So the fact that somebody holds him accountable now in Ben Johnson, and there's other guys there too that will do it. The running backs coach from the Chiefs, I'm blanking on his name. What's that?
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy. Yes. I mean, that's another guy that will hold veterans accountable. And I think that will help DJ as we go through this season. And he will still be, I think, at the end of the year, the Bears' number one receiver.
Yeah, I think it's if there is a reduction in offense, I think it's what we're talking about. It's okay. Part of that is the excitement, I think, for Rome, for Loveland when he's back. Cole Kmet only had one catch in this game. I think this is where hopefully, and honestly, in a best case scenario, like, don't we want that to happen? Like, Ryan Poles has invested in Luther Burden. He has invested in Rome Odunze and Colson Loveland. Like, you want those guys to overtake DJ Moore and overtake Cole Kmet as the main weapons of this offense. So whether it's a reduction in role because of what's been happening at practice and body language and things like that, because that's not body language. That's not the first time we've heard about that with DJ Moore. So I think it's fair to wonder if we're reading too much into it, like you said, Lauren, but also, I mean, he doesn't seem to be, the focal point of the offense. They're trying to more creatively get Burden involved, more creatively get Odunze involved. That is the emphasis. And I think that also says maybe more about just what, Ben Johnson thinks of DJ Moore in a way where, yes, he can be a good possession receiver, but he might not be the home run hitter that he was with Justin Fields. Like, it just might not be the case anymore, for him and for his role in this offense.
I'm just surprised they haven't been able to get him better opportunities to make plays after the catch. Like, not necessarily as the deep threat, but just like it has felt like a lot of curl routes and, in break or like out breaking routes where he's kind of like straight to the sideline. Like, we haven't seen him with the ball and a lot of space and some blockers in front. I feel like they tried like a screen pass or two and they haven't been able to block those very well, but I'm just kind of waiting for the shallow cross that he takes, 2 yards from beyond the line of scrimmage and then runs for another 18 after the catch. Cause like that feels like the kind of skill set Ben Johnson wants to take advantage of here, that we haven't really seen that aspect of his game in this offense unlocked.
Yeah, I think it's, we talked about it on the Tuesday show, Lauren, with Taylor. It's for some reason, like the connection just hasn't clicked yet with these guys. Like, it seems to be there with Caleb and Odunze, obviously, and it seems like it's growing quickly with Luther Burden, but just for whatever reason, the Caleb DJ Moore thing just hasn't quite clicked yet. And that's where, to Adam, to your point, like, could he still be the number one receiver by the end of the year? I think the answer to that is still yes. It just hasn't fully, it seems like they're just not quite there on the same page, the quarterback and the receiver, yet either.
Yeah, the most interesting thing was what you just said, Lauren, about how you getting him in space and letting him use his running ability, the yak, as they call it. It seemed like that guy today was Luther Burden, and they didn't even try that with DJ Moore. And, maybe I'm off and Joe's off that he isn't the number one receiver at the end of the year, and Luther Burden starts taking snaps away from him towards the end of the year, and we could see DJ Moore on his way out from the Chicago Bears. Who knows? But he's still such a dynamic weapon that can be used different ways that I think he can still be really, really good in this offense.
What do you want to see more from this offense going forward after this game, Lauren?
I mean, it's got to be the running game, right? They have to find some kind of answer there. And I'm not convinced that it's purely DeAndre Swift's fault, right? I mean, A, Kyle Monangai wasn't finding much more rushing room either, but B, like, I don't think it's purely a running back talent issue. That, yeah, of course, a Saquon Barkley or a better running back probably would have more rushing yards, but I'm not convinced that, like, if you just swapped out running back upgrade, that you would have a top 5 rushing offense in the NFL with this group. Like I think the offensive line is not as good run blocking as it certainly as it was in pass protection in this game against the Cowboys. First career game where Caleb Williams was not sacked through his first season and change here. But like Ben Johnson really wants to run the ball, and he had to get creative to do it this week, but they need to be able to just kind of have bread and butter, hand it off up the middle and get 4 yards and not struggle with these 1-2 yards. Because there were a couple of those 3rd and 1s where they handed it off and they just barely got it. And I was holding my breath both times. Yeah,
the right side has been pretty solid in the run game, but Tooney and Jones, especially Jones, I thought he was better today, but I still saw some things I didn't like in the run game and in the pass game that I thought he could be a lot better, and that's going to be a situation to watch as this season moves on because, Benedict got more plays today because Darnell Wright went down for that little bit. But I just think that they're still coming together as a unit is I guess what I'm hoping. And once they get more plays under their belt as a unit, they can start opening up some holes because, it's not all DeAndre Swift. It's probably 50-50, I mean, there's times when you watch DeAndre Swift run and you see the hole watching it on TV and it's like he's running with his eyes closed and he just runs into people. And that's really maddening to watch. So it'll be Monangai didn't get much, he wasn't in there like a bruising back like we thought he could be, but maybe that'll grow too as the season moves on.
Yeah, I think Bears fans are obviously everyone's really focused on this stat that's kind of gone viral amongst like Bears social media right now is that, was it yards before contact, the Bears offensive line and running backs are like number 1, but then yards after contact are last in the NFL. I think that's what everyone's kind of focusing in on this week specifically. And my guess is when we watch this game back in the all 22, we'll see some of the similar stuff. I'll be curious how Ben Johnson handles the Kyle Monangai run there on the long drive, running backwards like that. That seems like something that Ben Johnson's not going to be very thrilled with. I don't think any of us were. And then, yes, it still resulted in a touchdown, so it was okay. But, you're moving the ball the way they are. He put the Bears in a more challenging position. To go in a little bit different direction, what you guys want then, I would still like to, even though Loveland got hurt, and we'll see how the severity of what this injury is going to be, it's still only, 4 catches on the day for your tight end room. I would like to see that go up. I would like to see Cole Kmet more involved in this offense, specifically Cole. Like, I think Loveland's going to get there, but I think you still have a piece of your offense that you're not quite using as much as you should in the tight end room. So that to me is where I would really like to see the Bears take the next step in the next couple games.
Yeah, I think I like that they were splitting Loveland out early and using him in that way. And it wasn't just always a 3 wide receiver set. When they were doing that, they were using the big body tight end that can, is a great route runner, has speed, can stretch the field. So I like that dynamic that they're able to use if Loveland is healthy. Cole Kmet, man, I just don't know about him. I want to like Cole Kmet, but he makes it hard on me sometimes watching him run a route. And it's just like, you're running an in and it takes you forever to run the in. And it's frustrating to watch because I was not a fan of the pick when they picked him. Joe, I think we were doing a show together when he was picked, and you saw some upside in him early on in his career, and then it's just kind of been nothing since. So yeah, I would love to see more production. I just hope it's from Loveland and not Kmet.
And it was 2 catches, not 4. 2 catches from the tight end room.
Well, one was a touchdown at least.
Lauren, I think you're muted.
Perfect. And my biggest concern there is that with Loveland out, he played 6 snaps in this game. Durham Smythe played 23, and Durham Smythe is not an NFL caliber tight end. And
right,
it's just I don't want to see an extended role for him in the future.
Yeah. No, I do not. I do not either. All right, let's take a look at what happened on the other side of the ball. We talked about the offense for basically 34 minutes of the show so far. Let's talk about what we saw from Dennis Allen's defense. We'll get to that next year on the Bears Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was, well, let's go with the flea flicker there. Like, it was a little stressful. DeAndre Swift pops that ball up to Caleb Williams, but he makes an incredible throw down the field. Luther Burden catches it on the sideline and then turns it up for the touchdown. So that, to me, is going to be the moment that moved the game forward today. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Adam, I'll start with you on this one. What's your view of the defense's performance today?
I was really worried early. I was just seeing what the Cowboys did, what that Cowboys offense can be. The CD Lamb injury obviously helped the defense some in terms of not having to cover both him and Pickens. But I like the fact that Tyreek Stevenson came out, and maybe he was another one that Ben Johnson was talking about in practice and stuff, because he was playing with his hair on fire today. He was physical. He looks so much better in man-to-man coverage than he does trying to play zone and not having a clue of where to be. But I loved what he came out and did. And then the defense, they just did enough today. Nashawn Wright and McLeod, man, they're bad. They are really, really bad. But they found a way to make some plays and get turnovers, which is the big difference when your defense can do that.
If for me, it was about the pass rush getting a lot more pressure on Dak Prescott. And I think some of it was Dennis Allen getting a little bit more creative at the line of scrimmage and trying to find different ways to kind of throw some different looks at the offensive line that they couldn't handle. And some of it's just guys stepping up and playing better. And I can't help but wonder if some of that message too was to some of those guys up front. And we heard about, Grady Jarrett having some kind of emotional rah-rah speech to the team the night before, but Javon Dexter had a bunch of pressures in this game. Montez Sweat finally gets his first sack that counts, but I thought he was winning a lot of pass rushes up to that point. And then even Dominic Robinson makes a nice move off the edge on one play. I don't think he had a great game overall, but even those guys, once you start to see those guys getting more involved, then there's a certain level of confidence. And I think game script had a lot to do with it. When you're leading on the scoreboard, you really pin your ears back and get after it. And then even though they didn't necessarily stop the run super, super well, I just felt like, okay, something is making some real progress there up front.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, Lauren, on one of our other shows we did, but the full rotations that they do still surprises me a little bit to see. I mean, it is an entire defensive unit on the field, off the field throughout this game, and it hasn't really worked out. I know they're trying to keep guys fresh, but I mentioned Remy Robinson got his first sack since 2022, is what it was, that's tough. But at least he finally got one. Maybe for him and Sweat and other guys, and I think the hope here is it can be the snowball rolling down the hill a little bit, turning a little bit bigger as it keeps rolling down the hill a little bit more. That's what I think the hope is for the defense, is that today can be a sign of things to come for the unit up front. I think obviously, like you said, the game script helps it. When you're up by a ton of points, it's much easier. You're pinning your ears back and going after the quarterback. Javonte Williams, though, did have quite a bit of success early on. That, to me, is one area where I didn't feel like we saw much improvement this week, was in the run game, where it felt like he was getting 3, 4, 5, 6 yards every single time he touched the ball. That, to me, is still the one area of concern in this game that I still very much have about the defensive unit.
That's supposed to be their strength. The defensive line is against the run, and they're not doing it well at all to start this season. But the pressures were good. I do think it was the score, and that's why I also liked going up 17. It allowed you to, they got to score 3 times now, and they have to throw the ball, and that allows you to pin your ears back a little bit. Tremaine Edmunds had a good game. Obviously had the 2 picks, but I thought he looked like he was flying around a little more today than he has been. And Noah Sewell played well. I don't know about Daniel Hardy playing linebacker. I think the couple times he did that, he really, really struggled. But overall, keeping them to 14 points was a shock to me, because I thought for sure Dallas was putting up 24 plus in this game.
Yeah, especially just because Nashawn Wright started off so poorly on a couple of those plays early on, where it's just like, are they just going to keep going after him over and over again? And they did for a little while there, but it didn't end up being that overall like devastating, detrimental, because I think they did a good enough job of having some help over top so that Dak couldn't go deep. And so after a while, it was just like, well, they just got to keep kind of throwing it short and coming down and making those plays and then wait for somebody else to mess up on the Cowboys offense, whether it's the offensive line breaking down or a penalty or certainly a turnover or two in there really derailed a lot of the momentum that they had. And it just felt like for the first time all season, it felt like the Bears were like, maybe not the first time all season, but for 4 quarters, they stayed a step ahead coaching wise. Whereas it felt like against the Vikings, maybe they started that way and then didn't finish that way. Against the Lions, they were like always a step behind trying to catch up. Like the Bears were like one adjustment ahead this week. And it felt like they'd been one adjustment behind the previous 5 or 6 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys are talking about here with these guys making impact. So Edmunds ends up with 15 tackles on the day of the 2 interceptions. But I think the first 2 drives specifically, Noah Sewell really was just standing out. He was all over the place. He's really impressed me with what he's done. You mentioned Tyreek Stevenson as well. He was all over. I mean, the strip he had was probably the best play of the game from the defense to just run up on Javonte like that when they're driving down the field and to rip it right from him like that. That's a very impressive way. And it's very non-traditional. Like normally it's the peanut punch, but he just took that thing like it belonged to him.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because the way Tyreek was playing, it still felt like the Cowboys were trying to throw at him more than they should have because Wright was getting burned left and right, and McLeod was just chasing Turpin everywhere he went, and he was always 4 steps behind him. So it was surprising how often they went after Tyreek Stevenson, even after he continued to make play after play. So little bit of that goes on the Cowboys OC. But when you lose CeeDee Lamb, and it's also going to be interesting how Dennis Allen continues to do this, because it's obvious that McLeod and Wright are not man-to-man corners. They can't do it. But Tyree Stevenson, that's all he can really do. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays that next week against the Raiders and then moving forward.
Yeah, I am curious, like, how much of this is inflated by the lack of CeeDee Lamb, that once he goes out of this game, like, I certainly, we can all recognize that, like, yeah, okay, Bears offense beat up on a bad Cowboys defense. It's not going to be that easy every single week. But, like, Cowboys offense was, like, a real deal moving the ball well. And the Bears defense certainly didn't shut them down, but, really held them down effectively. But, if CeeDee Lamb is out, like, do we get a false sense of confidence that if CeeDee Lamb were out there, is he smoking Nashawn Wright and maybe even Tyreek Stevenson up and down the field? And all of a sudden, this is maybe the Bears still win, but it's a back and forth shootout, and it's 31-28 instead of 31-14, and we don't have as much confidence gained. And yet, next week against the Raiders, there's not going to be any star receivers that are really going to be stretched, that are going to be testing your corners the same way. So maybe you can get through to the bye week with what you got here, and maybe make an addition or a change, a free agent signing. Or Kyler Gordon's healthy by then. Some kind of options to Jalen Jones gets healthy by then. And heck, there's reports that Jalen Johnson, if the surgery goes well, could be back later in the season. Like, maybe can you get by, if the opposing receiver talent doesn't have a CeeDee Lamb, or doesn't have an Amon-Ra St. Brown, or doesn't have a Justin Jefferson every week?
Yeah, I think even though they don't have the name, something called Trey Tucker had 8 catches for 145 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Las Vegas Raiders today. I have no idea who that kid is, but he's going to be the number 1 waiver wire pickup. I think the thing about next week and from this game that I am concerned about is, while Brock Bowers has been a little hobbled, I think Jake Ferguson ended up with 13 catches today. That to me is going to be an area of focus for this week. I think for the defense is guarding the tight end position, because Bowers is a monster, and Ferguson was pretty much having his way with the Bears at really any point in this game today.
I will say, though, with that, it felt like what Lauren said, they were keeping the ball in front of them no matter what. So it wasn't like Ferguson was stretching the field on all these catches. It was dump it 6 yards and then he picks up 1, and it was just over and over and over. So I think that now Bowers was obviously, you said hobbled, but still a much more dynamic playmaker than Jake Ferguson. So he can make you pay. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they cover him. Going back to CeeDee Lamb real quick, how dumb is it to put CeeDee Lamb in the backfield and give him a carry? Like, he's not built like DJ Moore or some of these other guys that we see doing it more. He's long, lanky. Like, that's not what you want CeeDee Lamb doing. But hey, Who are we? We're just
Look,
three guys talking on a podcast.
I mean, look, I think, and I don't want to be too disrespectful to DJ Moore here, but like if DJ Moore gets rolled up on, like you still have Rome Odunze and Luther Burden and Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet. Like they have Pickens and Ferguson. Like they don't really have weapons. I don't think I'd ever put like Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who I think had a carry today for the Bengals. They were desperate. I don't think I'd ever put that caliber of wide receiver in the backfield like that. And the Bears just kind of, got the positive side of it.
Well, especially like the Bears do it with DJ Moore because they can't run the ball otherwise.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to get him the ball.
But the Cowboys are moving it with Javonte Williams without too much trouble. So like, what are you doing it for? They're like, you're not trying to boost your running game by putting CeeDee Lamb back there. Like it's a little more desperation when Chicago does it. The Cowboys, it was like a luxury that felt weird.
Yeah, you have Miles Sanders that had multiple carries for over 4.5 yards per carry. So it's not like you're missing a backs out and you're just down to one on the roster and you're throwing CeeDee Lamb. It just felt weird in the game when it happened. I'm like, why are you handing the ball off to CeeDee Lamb right now? But hey, whatever, it worked for the Bears, got them a win, and now we move on, right?
Yep. All right, we'll take our next and final break here. We'll kind of take a big picture look at this game. We've talked about what we just saw from the defense, but CeeDee Lamb wasn't out there. And we talked about the Bears offense against the struggling Cowboys defense this year. So which of those, positives from today feels a little bit, we have to take a step back with as we look at the perspective of this game. We'll get to the next year on the Bears Squad Show.
The Bears Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So say you want to bet on this Bears-Raiders game coming up this next weekend, where currently the Bears are 1.5-point underdogs on the road on FanDuel Sportsbook. The money line is even. It's Bears minus 108 if you want to pick them straight up. And the point spread, the point total is set at over under 47.5 points. So a $5 bet on those or any other game or any other sport, and you win. Not only are you going to get the winnings from your $5 bet, but then an additional $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Maybe my favorite moment of the Bears press conference that happened. We don't have the audio or anything like that, but here's the Caleb Williams quote from today. Congrats, everybody. You get a free hot dog because the Wiener Circle in Chicago said if Caleb Williams throws for 4 touchdowns, everyone gets free hot dogs on Tuesday. So congrats to everyone that's going to get free hot dogs.
Luckily, it wasn't 300 yards because he came just short of that.
I know.
This, of course, all feels like a cheap knockoff of George Webb's up in Milwaukee, but another time.
So what like we talked all the good things about the offense, how the defense did look better in this game, but again, it's the Cowboys. Like CeeDee Lamb's not out there. The defense, we know what's happened against them. Russell Wilson torched them for like 400 yards the week before. So what are you more hesitant to buy in from immediately after this game? Is it the offense or is it the defense? Adam?
To me, I'm not buying into the defense, especially when Nashawn Wright and McLeod are out there chasing receivers and being two of your more, they're playing all these snaps at DB without Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson. But it's just, we've seen Geno be really, really bad 2 weeks ago, and then we've seen him play really good today at 3 touchdowns, really high percentage of throws that he completed. You just can't trust this defense because the pass rush is not there. You're not going to get up on a team every single week, allowing them to kind of pin their ears back and make that decision to just go after the quarterback and not worry about the run game as much. So yeah, I'm not buying the defense. I think they can build off of it, and Dennis Allen will continue to make this unit better, but I don't think they're going to hold, offenses to 14 points and lower the rest of the season or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too specific into the Raiders, but I don't love the ability to slow down Ashton Genty next week. I know he hasn't had a great overall season because they haven't been able to run box very well, but it feels like
it's coming
go off. Yeah, right. if there's ever a game where he can go off, it might be next week. And then all of a sudden, they start to have some of these same conversations. But I do think so. I do think, and we're probably all on the same page about this. The truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Where like the Bears defense absolutely got better. It's not going to be this good next week against the Raiders, but it's not going to be back to the Lions bad either, right? Like there's definitely been pass rush progress, but it's not solved. There's definitely been, some turnover, playmaking, aggressiveness, like progress, but they're not going to get 3 picks. I mean, 2 real picks, but plus a garbage time pick. They're not going to get plus the forced fumble. Like you're not going to get this many turnovers every week, but they might get a little bit more. And I think same thing for the offense. Like you're not facing Matt Eberflus every week, so you're not necessarily going to put up this kind of points with 31 every single week. But I think there's real progress from Caleb Williams and real progress from the offensive line and pass protection that this is going to continue to be better, and that the Raiders, despite being favored at home just slightly, like should be another winnable game. That we can trust that the progress is enough to keep going, even if it's not solved.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, especially with the defense, like there's things that can get better. I think the turnovers is one where hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I think that's, to me, it's just as important, if not more important, than getting to the quarterback. Like being able to force turnovers, which they obviously did against JJ McCarthy, but forcing Geno Smith to make mistakes next week will be a huge factor into if the Bears are going to win that game. And I think they should. I think they're going to be the better football team. I was surprised to hear you say that they're going to be underdogs, at least at this moment. That'll probably flip throughout the week, I would imagine, as there seems like a massive contingent of Bears fans heading to Las Vegas for the game, as there should be. You don't get to go that often for it. I think with the offense, it is, I buy more into the offense this week than the defense for sure. And that's because while it hasn't been pretty at all times, obviously, for Caleb Williams, there has been flashes in the first 2 games of the season where you're like, okay, this looks like this dude's got the goods and there's something to build off of. And this just looked like another building block. That's what this game was. It was a building block in the right direction for the Bears. And I think now the most important question is can you follow it up? Can Caleb Williams go out there and throw for 2 or 3 touchdowns and over 250 yards again next week? That to me is really like when it's easier to look back at this game and feel really positive about. But it's definitely on both sides of the ball. It's a step in the right direction. And well, for the first time in his career, he was right about Torrey Taylor not having to punt as much. Which great punt, by the way. That one was great, right? Out of bounds at the 6-yard line. One of them was great. So at least for today, Caleb Williams.
4? Yeah. Well, and I do feel like that. Even if the next week, they go and they beat the Raiders by whatever touchdown or whatever, and they're 2-2 entering the bye week, the perception is still going to be like, well, they beat a bad Cowboys team, and then at that point, the Raiders will be 1-3 if the Bears beat them. So they've beaten 2 bad teams, and have they really made any progress? And how much better is this team actually? And I think there is some validity to that. Like you got to start doing this against better teams, but I also think after those first 2 games, we've all been at a point where it's like, okay, let's just start by doing it against some bad teams, and we will take that and feel like that is absolutely real progress when the Lions, embarrassed you out of the building completely.
And I do think there is something to the validity of that, but we also got to realize that, or remember that this is the NFL. This isn't college where you're playing, your Ohio State playing New Mexico State, where you just blow them out. This is still NFL team. Cleveland Browns beat Green Bay today. I mean, and we were talking about Green Bay being, we were talking about Green Bay being a top echelon team in the league. And then they go out and lose to Joe Flacco and the Browns by only scoring 10 points and giving up a last second field goal, getting one blocked to win it, and then giving up the game winning field goal. So you just got to go out and beat who's in front of you each week, and you're right, Lauren, it's a building block game today. The Raiders are the next building block. Build on that. And I think that's where Caleb and the offense can continue to grow together. Hopefully Colson Loveland's playing. He can get going. Luther Burden keeps playing well. And my favorite thing about this offense so far, they're not really turning the ball over. Like Caleb, did he have the one tip ball today that probably could have been picked?
Yep.
Other than that, he didn't put the ball in harm's way at all today. And that's something he's done pretty well so far in the year plus that he's done. He hasn't put the ball in harm's way a lot. Now he has overthrows and, throws it at their feet and whatnot time and time again. But I just think this offense, this is a building block game, whereas the defense, they could come out and give up 35 to the Raiders next week, and I wouldn't be surprised.
To that point, like when Caleb misses, he does tend to miss safely. It's at a guy's feet. I mean, the one time was that the Zacchaeus interception on the sideline against was it the Lions game on the rollout there?
Oh yeah.
Even that, like that wasn't so much like he overthrew him per se was he thought Zacchaeus was going to be running deeper than he was. It was more of a communication, it was less of an accuracy issue and more of a anticipation and communication issue there. But like when he overshoots guys, it's deep where there's no one behind them. He needs to put more on it where only his guy can get it. Or when he misses guys short, it's at their feet where no one else is going to be able to intercept it. There haven't really been many of those. Like when he layers those over the middle, like they're not really in harm's way much at all.
Yeah, I think there are two things you mentioned about the interceptions or Caleb, the interception worthy throws that does feel very different from last year to this year. As we know, Eberflus and them, that was a point of emphasis, right? It was don't throw interceptions, don't put the ball anywhere risky, and it felt like you could see Caleb operating in that way. That to me seems to have changed, where he's making sure that he's not throwing interceptions by just making better throws overall and not getting sacked as much. That part of it is where it feels like it's more natural than not throwing the interceptions, where last year it felt very forced. Like it was like, I'm not going to throw picks. Nothing else matters. I'm not going to throw picks because Eberflus doesn't want me to turn the ball over. That feels very different too.
And part of that still could leak into this year in some of these. That first throw to Loveland felt, he's trying to keep it outside and not, and he was open and it was a clear miss, but that still could be last year creeping in where it's like, okay, you don't want to throw a pick this quick and turn the game on its head early. So maybe that could still be creeping in a little bit as he continues to refine some mechanical issues that he has. And I just think that it was a good game for Caleb today in terms of never putting it in harm's way and still ripping the ball on that 62-yarder, that throw over the defense to Burden, and multiple throws today where he was able to just let loose.
And we got to give, all the credit in the world to Matt Eberflus for teaching Caleb Williams to respect the ball. It's it's the tee and the hits. And I'm sure Caleb could hear it from the sidelines at Soldier Field today as Matt Eberflus was, instructing his guys. It was good reminders every time. Caleb's like, that's right. I do need to respect the ball. Thanks, coach.
I'm glad they won today, guys. I think if they would have lost today and Matt Eberflus' defense would have shut down Caleb Williams, it would have been a long week. It would have been harder to ignore the Bajent cries. That was my biggest concern. I was like, man, if Eberflus comes out and dominates Caleb Williams, it's going to be a long week for all of us talking Bears. That's for sure. I'm sure, Lauren, you feel very happy you don't have to do that Monday through Friday.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we either, depending on your perspective, didn't have enough faith in Matt Eberflus or had too much faith in Matt Eberflus. Like we should remember who we're talking about and dealing with here, right? Like this is we had enough years of Matt Eberflus to know. Like I think you could have some confidence in this game going at least offensively for the Bears going that way. And it was all the question for me of like, can Dennis Allen and them slow down Dak Prescott enough, or was this going to be a 35-31 final score?
Well, and looking ahead to the Raiders next week, they gave up 41 points to the Commanders today, led by Marcus Mariota, not Jaden Daniels. So, Bears fans coming off this performance against a really bad Cowboys defense, they're going to expect something similar. Now, yeah, not 4 touchdowns and all that, but they're going to expect 28 points and in a victory against a down Raiders team that I think is better than we've seen them, over the past couple weeks. But Bears fans see this, and then they see what happened without Jaden Daniels. They're going to expect the Bears to come out and play well offensively against the Raiders.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. I'm glad we got to do one of these or the Bears one. It took us 3 weeks, but we finally got to do one of these.
Hopefully we get a lot more.
Hopefully we get a lot more of these because they're a lot more fun when the Bears get the victor. So remember, hit that subscribe button right here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. We're here with you for the Bears Squad show on Tuesday nights. Myself, Lauren, and Taylor Dahl from 1010XL and the Windy City Gridiron. And then Lauren, myself, and Adam are here with you after every single game. Plus, you can catch Lauren Monday through Friday, dropping his daily Bears show on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. So remember, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, plus wherever you get your podcasts on Apple and Spotify. We will talk to you guys next week. Go Bears. Have a good one. Peace.